Okay, Sunday, July 6, 2025, and I'm in the catacombs of our building, the Habit building in Brussels, Belgium. It's raining cats and dogs outside, and this will be one of my last recordings from Belgium. I'm going to break down these videos by topic. I have one video per topic. So yeah, today's my last recording day in Brussels. Next week we're heading back to Ukraine, and I probably won't have a chance to record anything until we're back in Lviv. So I think this time next week we'll be arriving in Lviv. So we're close, we'll be on the border. It depends on the queues in the border. It can go very fast sometimes, and other times you're just stuck there. So yeah, this is it. Let's see if the light comes on. Maybe there's some, I don't know how interesting this is going to be, but it's really, really pouring outside. It makes it, the water hits the screen, and you get drops on the camera, and then you can't make a nice video. But yeah, this is the basement. So this is like where people park bicycles. We don't really have many cars here. It's really expensive to park, so I don't know. And I guess most of the residents, they're not driving. They're mostly walking like us. So what do we want to talk about? So I guess the last video, at least for me, it went viral, right? I got, I don't know, close to 800 views or something. So that's usually viral. My typical videos have 50, 60 views. Not so many. I'm not a big YouTube star. So yeah, what do we want to talk about? So I got a lot of comments. People were saying I was racist. I didn't say any racial slurs or anything derogatory towards anyone. I just said what I saw. I'm just stating facts, based on mathematics and my own observations. And I don't think that's racism. I get along with all kinds of people. There's people I prefer to hang out with, and people, actually the people I hang out with and the people I do business with are two different people. There's people that are good to do business with, but they're not fun to hang out with. And there's people that you hang out with that you would never trust in a business deal. So anyway, so there's a difference between prejudice and preferences. So anyway, yeah. Let's see. So yeah, I was just citing facts. What things are. We're here in Europe, and there's a big change going on. There's certain groups of people having higher birth rates, and then there's certain groups of people who are having lower birth rates. And over time, I don't know if you've ever taken a math class, you people calling me racist or something, but like exponential growth, laws of exponential growth, like I said, the Arabs and Muslims and all the people here in Europe are going to be the majority, and the people who were here, I guess they could say they were here first. I don't know, people have been moving around, migrating all through human history, so it's arguable to say that sometimes there's one group has been there and then they get displaced and then another group comes. But anyway, they're not reproducing. You're white people, you say, you're European, indigenous European people. They are not having families, big families anymore, if at all. A lot of people are just opting out of relationships and opting out, like in Japan. It's just too hard. It's cost a lot of money, this whole dating game thing. It's just put people off, and they'd rather play video games or get a dog or cat, that they carry around in their little handbag or something, and that's their life. And they go to their job, and they eat at the office. They get good food at the office. Nobody needs anybody, but all the while in the background, like I said, I'm living here in central Brussels. The black people, the Arab people, they're having big families, and this will all be theirs. So that was just, I don't know if that's anything racist, saying facts. So, okay, let's move on to let's move ahead 50 years from now. Let's pretend we're 50 years in the future. And Brussels is now, or all of Europe is now a European Caliphate. That's the word I was looking for. an Islamic, unified Islamic republic. I'm not sure how unified it would be. I guess there's different groups of Arabs, different, then there's, Persians and Pashtun and European, like Albanian Muslims. So anyway, it's like all like majority Muslim people, and maybe they have different factions. Then you have modern Muslims, and then you have like, people who really believe, they cover themselves up, they pray 5 times a day. And then, so how are they all going to get along? That's, maybe they want to keep things kind of the way they are. But who knows? But I think in general, you'll see there'll be no more abortions. I mean, these are things I find would be good. I would be okay with this. No more abortions, no more pork. I've been against pork meat for a very long time. No alcohol. I think alcohol is a waste of time. So, there'll be a lot of good food here. A lot of these people, they cook good food. Lebanese food is good, and I've had falafels, and I like Persian food a lot. It's close to Indian food, except without all the really heavy spices. It's a much lighter version of Indian food. It's made lemon lime. It's like Mediterranean cooking. That's probably more my favorite than Indian food because it's more lighter. And you won't have all this woke LGBTQ stuff anymore. They'll just paint the crosswalks, if they have crosswalks. I don't know. I don't know how the money will get spent. I mean, I will get into the downsides of living in a European caliphate. But you won't have to deal with that anymore. Schools will probably, stick to the basics, as one would say. So yeah, those would be some good welcome changes. But the bad thing is like, people, when you take away the alcohol, what I noticed here in Brussels, the people aren't drinking in the park, but they're smoking a lot of hash. So there's a lot of smoking, and I think in these Middle Eastern countries, instead of drinking, they do hash, and they smoke the water pipes and all this, and tobacco usage, it's really high. So I think there'll be a lot of smoking, so maybe I would pick up some shares of Philip Morris, long term. Maybe smoking will start trending back up. Definitely there'll be less innovation, right? We haven't seen much innovation from the Middle East in, a couple thousand years. They used to be really innovative, back in the time of the Sumerians and ancient Persia, long before the time of the prophet, long before the time of Jesus. That's when they were innovating. The Persians had created these like natural air conditioners. The Egyptians built pyramids and, had really good math and Pythagorean theorem, and someone over there invented chess and the zero. But, after things had changed, the innovation went way down. So, what I see happening is they will erase history, just like, when the Romans conquered Greece, when they conquered Sparta, they started, rewriting the history, or what you saw the Taliban do in Afghanistan. They blew up all the Buddha statues that were there for thousands of years. They just dynamited them, and they probably burned up a lot of books talking about the. So I don't know all this. You won't be able to read about evolution. I like reading about evolution. I mean, I grew up Baptist and Christian and everything, but I'm still fascinated by human evolution. I do believe that is part of the story. We see it. We're seeing it right here in Brussels. Some people adapt, some people don't. That type of thing. And humans always find a way, right? And then parts of Europe will be having piles and piles of garbage. So there are parts of the Middle East I've been to that are really clean, like Dubai and Qatar and all this area. And then there's other parts that are really dirty, like Egypt. Or they're just like living on a big piles of garbage. I mean, they have like mountains and mountains of garbage, and there's a whole people are living there, sorting through the garbage for like generations. There's houses on top of it, so I don't know how they're going to manage the garbage. I mean, I can just say here, the way I see things in this building we live in here in Brussels, it was a real challenge for them to get the garbage under control. They had to threaten people with fines. They had to draw a lot of arrows. This is how you go to the bin. Otherwise it just starts piling up. People don't want to put things in a garbage can. So, and there'll probably be loads of mismanagement. I mean, all of these Middle Eastern countries, the reason why they're in the situation they're in is there's a lot of corruption, a lot of mismanagement. I mean, look at Saudi Arabia, they're doing this NEOM project, and they just can't seem to get anything built. You know, I was reading about this line in the sand building, 500 meters tall and 170 kilometers long, 103 miles long. Now it's just down to like being a 2-kilometer long building, and a lot of money disappeared. So, I mean, corruption is bad enough in Western countries, but in Middle Eastern countries, it's, so we could have loads of corruption. And I think the worst thing about living in this, European caliphate will be the religious freedom and freedom of speech. Like they tolerate Christians in a lot of Middle Eastern countries. I mean, yes, Christians are persecuted, but mostly they're tolerated. The ones that are persecuted are the ones that are proselytizing, sharing their beliefs, sharing what they like about their religion. You can't do that in most Middle Eastern countries. If you're Christian, and born Christian, they will let you exist, but you can't start spreading the word. You can't share. And I've never been one to like spread the word, but I think people should be allowed to talk about something if they like it. Muslims here in Europe are allowed to talk about their religion and convert people. I mean, I even know one guy, an Australian guy who converted to Islam, mostly for a girl. I mean, he's not really into it. It was because the girl was Muslim and he wanted to get a Muslim girl and stuff, but, the modern Muslims, right? Taking day after pills and everything, giving day after pills to their girlfriends and all this, so that I think will be a big rift between modern Muslims and real Muslims. That'll be it's not going to be all harmony here, that's for sure. Their own issues from their own countries are going to rear its head over here. And the thing is, they're going to have a lot of modern weapons and infrastructure to go along with that, so. Yeah, and then free speech will be gone. Just like in Dubai, you can't talk against that's why I would never live in Dubai. You can't talk against the ruling family there. WhatsApp doesn't work there. They have their own version of it so they can monitor everything you say. So it'll be pretty locked down here. I won't be able to make these YouTube videos anymore, in 50 years from now. And I don't know if the monuments will stand, going back to rewriting history, will they, change all the churches like they did when they took Turkey? That big mosque with a giant dome, that was actually a church. And then they put minarets on it and converted it to a mosque. That was actually built by Christians. Are they going to turn, Notre Dame and all these churches here into mosques or blow them up? Or, are they going to, in a way, if they win the continent and they win the election, and that's what the people want, that's what's going to happen. I mean, this is just, it's sad, it's tragic, but this is evolution, right? It's sad that the dinosaurs died out, but they couldn't adapt. It's just, I think that's what we're seeing here in Europe. I was watching how the Romans, conquered Sparta and everything. The Greeks were living on their past. They just thought people were going to be afraid of them because of everything that happened in the past. Oh, we were the Spartans, we kicked everyone's ass, so you're not going to even try. And then the Romans tried, took out their king, created a lot of chaos in the lines because the Spartans were very, the people in Sparta very much had to have their king, and so there was a lot of distrust. So there were all these factions, and the Romans got the factions to fight with each other. And then they just burned down some cities, and turned the Spartans from warriors into taxpayers. And we're very lucky that we even know this story because the Romans were rewriting the history. So, I don't know, someone is honking. It's so annoying. There's so many problems with this building. I think that people can't get into the garage. So yeah, that's probably some of the downsides, And yeah, so I just want to wrap this up. I wrote some notes on the back of this paper here. So from my last video, what I wanted to, the point of my last video was that the Palestinians, instead of fighting for this land, because they're not getting it back. I mean, this is not going to happen. I think, when Israel's got Donald Trump on their side and Israel's got all these weapons and they're really highly organized, and after October 8th, whatever this Hamas did, they just united, made Israel more united. All the people there were a ton of Israelis that were supporting Palestinians, lots of them actually. Lots of them didn't like what their own government was doing. That's gone. Everybody's on the same side now in Israel. Everyone's kind of getting everything together. So my advice to Palestinians and Arabs is just to keep reproducing in Europe and grab Europe. And then maybe when you have Europe, you can get your Palestine back. People were yelling at me, stay out of our land, stay out of our land. Nobody's staying out of anybody's land. That never has happened where people could just live peacefully and, somehow the whole world goes by, especially if you have resources or a good location. Like, that's prime beachfront land. There's a lot of claims to it, so it ain't happening, the thing is, you can't rest on history. Like we were talking about the Romans and the Spartans, you can't rest on history. So it's not racist to cite facts or have an opinion or anything. I mean, these are just my observations. And this is set in stone. These changes that are going to happen in the next 50 years to Europe are set in stone. The fact that Israel will exist. Now, here's my view, just to wrap up here. I cannot, I don't get along with Jewish people and Israeli people that well, but I think Israel should exist. I get along with Arabs really well, like here in, the Brussels market and, the neighbors and stuff, the Arab neighbors, they're very fun, cordial, but I don't think they should be running things here in Europe. They're fun people to hang out with and everything, but Europe should be having a Christian foundation, a Christian base, a Protestant one. Not even Catholic. It should be Protestant. This is what gave us Western civilization and democracy. It's all based on the Protestant values. However, the math is against what I believe. So, when there's just very strong mathematics, like a meteor heading towards the Earth, as much as you love the Earth and everything, it's just watching a train wreck in slow motion, and this is what's happening, and this is the way it's going to be. And I don't know if that is racist. That's just how I feel. It's, I don't think it's racist. I mean, racism is this, like, it's like, when you're hiring for a job and you only take people with like a European last name. You're using that to make decisions. I think that's racism, or you don't like a person just because of the way they look or just because of the way they believe. I have friends, relatives, all this from all kinds of religions and stuff, and I take it case by case. But when you want to look at things in a global, macro way, yeah, I have my views. But, the European nationalists blew it. They all wanted to be separate, like these Greek city-states. They didn't want to pull it together and unite when there's a big force coming from the outside. French want to speak French, Italians want to speak Italians, British want to speak English, the Norwegians want to speak Norwegian, the Swedes, they can't get over the fact that they need a single common language and a single common government and single common army and all this stuff to pull together, and they're being picked off and divided and conquered, and this is just what it is. And so we have to adjust ourselves now. For those of us seeing it coming, how are we going to exist in the European Caliphate? Will we have our churches underground and, have some books on evolution hidden away somewhere? Because the internet will probably be very regulated, very monitored. Or do we, store everything on USB sticks? So how do we adapt? And that's not racism, that's just evolution. But anyway, yeah, adaptation, evolution is all about being able to adapt. So anyway, that's all I got for this little piece, and I'll make the next one on leaving farewell to Brussels or something.